This is Growth Guide, a podcast exploring the depths of curiosity, questioning everything in the name of growth. I'm your host, Brian D'Alessandro. Today we speak with the acclaimed jeweler Pitango Trotoush. To label Pitango a jeweler is like calling the Grand Canyon a big hole. He's an enigma, an artist, a mystic, and in many ways a guru. Now, when you acquire a Pitango ring, it's typically accompanied by a lot of sage being burnt, a tea ceremony, and a reading where he seemingly looks into your soul while he describes the powers of the ring you selected. Or maybe that selected you. His story reminds us to embody our truth and follow our purpose, which is exactly what he's done. Some 30 years ago, Pitango came out of the Israeli army a hardened man who had lost his smile. One day, while backpacking through India, he begrudgingly followed a fellow backpacker to a cave where hundreds lined up. As he neared, he felt something strange. The heaviness he carried became lighter. Each step closer brought him greater salvation and closer to his purpose. The monk he waited for changed the course of his life. While he never heard of this man, it turned out to be the Dalai Lama. This experience clarified his vision, and he began making exquisite jewelry to empower people to be their greatest self. Pitango maybe sees his rings and jewelry as tools of healing, steeped in the study of the special alchemic connection between stones, metals, and antique symbols. He intentionally selects precious and semi-precious stones from locations around the world. He combines them with antique metals, talisman, and coins. Now, these words fail to express the power of his rings. I was drawn to his work personally over 15 years ago, and it's rare that a week, if not a day, goes by without someone fixating on a ring that I'm wearing. First, it's because they're gorgeous, but more deeply, because they're true talisman and carry a material power. Let's learn more about his incredible work. Hello, Pitango. So good to see your face, as always, and those amazing eyebrows of yours.
Yeah.
Well, glad you could join today. It's going to be a lot of fun diving into your work. I was thinking back on it because it's one of these funny things, right? We don't see each other all the time, but you're always present, both in memories, but also in your jewelry. It's rarely that I don't have one of your pieces, at least, on my hands. And I was thinking back when we first met about 20 years ago, back on Prince Street, on the street as a street vendor in Soho, New York City, right outside the Apple Store. Actually, it might have even been right before the Apple Store popped up. It was that
Yeah, it
long
was
ago.
the post office.
Yes, it was the post office, right. So I remember Nava, my wife, and I were walking down the street, and on that street, especially 20 years ago on Prince Street, there's a lot of like tables set up with vendors, but the majority of it back then was just all tchotchkes. It's like, you walk by and you're like, yeah. Then I was like, I started choking. I got hit with a big plume of your smoke. It was sage that you were burning, and I was like, whoa.
Oh,
So it was like your 1-2 punch. You like first hit me with a puff of sage, and then it stunned me, and then I looked down and saw the jewelry, and I was just like, damn, what is going on here? And so that started our journey into your world. And what's really unique is, your work isn't, yes, it's jewelry and it's beautiful and it's crafted, but it's so much more than that. And how you present your work and the intention and the reading behind it that you pretty much give is what's really so striking. Can you talk a little bit about your process of how you introduce your work to people?
yeah, of course. Just before, I want to refer to that moment, like I had this routine back then when I was a street vendor. I had this routine of coming around 8 o'clock to reserve my spot in front of the Apple Store or the post office. And from the moment I arrive, I light the sage. and the sage is burned until the moment I leave. So it was not only like, yeah, because like you come with your intention to serve, and I have those magical rings and temples for the fingers and all those whoa things. But then eventually I'm in the street, and it's not necessary that people come to see me. People just walk in the street, so so they don't come to see. But I was like, how can I serve somehow without being without being like, hey, I'm the ring guy, just sage, blowing away in the street. And that was like kind of like what you met first. And that's awesome that actually that's the first thing that hit you. So that's cool. Now, the rings, or the jewelry or the temples or whatever I call them with different time, different places in my life. And it's kind of starting from that place in India. I'm just finishing my service in the army, the Israeli army, and I'm arriving to India, and something knocked me out from my conscious. Like I'm still conscious, but I'm not conscious to who is conscious. And I'm walking in India, and I kind of like felt like I lost my box. And the only thing I know is I'm like constantly counting and following other tourists to different places. And eventually, like after a month and a half, I arrived to this place called Dharamsala, and somehow I'm in front of this monk, looking in my eyes. For the first time in my life, someone actually looking in my eyes. That was that monk, and I someone received me exactly the way I never been received before, just as I am. Someone saw someone saw me and loved what he saw. And it's kind of like it's been like a huge process of healing for me. And from that moment I felt like there was this child that got a permission to lead. Until then was like someone who pretend to be an adult. And from that moment there was a child that was leading. It's like he was, and I feel like he's still in the lead. But so I was walking in that I kept traveling in India for another few months, and then I arrived to a place called Goa. And in Goa, it's in south of India, and it's an old ceremonial place, like for hundreds of years. And I I arrived there, and I'm walking in this market, and I was 22. I just turned 22, and for the first time in my life, I'm conscious of the voice inside of my head. It always been there, but I was like, I just never defined it in any way. And I was like, whoa, there is a voice in my head. And I was like, oh, like what people call the higher self or whatever. You have millions of names. And I was like, just stop and feel that voice. And this voice tell me, you can do anything you want. And I was like, okay, I can do anything I want. But I born as a Jew, and I was like, oh, I have whatever I want with money, right? And the voice is like, no, 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 you can do anything you want. And I'm like concentrating, like, whoa. And then I open my eyes, and there is this Tibetan woman that sells turquoise. And I never saw turquoise in my life. She has this table full of turquoise. I never saw stones in my life. I never saw turquoise. And I'm looking at those turquoise and this beautiful woman, like an elder Tibetan woman. I'm like, this is what I want to do in my life. I didn't even know what it is. And I went to that table and I bought out of the table with all the money that I had. The next week, I told my dad to sell my motorbike in Israel, and a few big motorbikes. Sell the rest of them. I bought the rest of the table. And, it's funny because I thought back then the turquoise are stones. Like I didn't know that there is other stones. I thought the turquoise is another word for stone. Like, so in my mind, I felt like I bought all the stones in the world, and now I'm gonna make jewelry for the kings and the queens of the world. Which, yeah, like you and I.
So I remember you shared part of this story with me once before, a long time ago. Now, can you share who was this mysterious monk that was sitting in front of you, recognizing you for the first time? Because you didn't know who it was, right?
No, I didn't know it was the Dalai Lama, but I didn't know back then that it was the Dalai Lama. There was a line of people. I remember like the first. Yeah, you want to say that name, right?
Because I remember part of it also, where you had told me that you had just come out of the army in Israel and you hadn't smiled in as long as you could remember. Felt like your heart was just so armored and you just were closed. And you shared that like you were with some backpacker and he was just like, yeah, come, we're gonna go see some guy at some mountain. And you're just like, all right, fine, I don't know what the heck this crap is and why we're waiting on this line, but you did. And you had said that as you got closer, you just started feeling more at ease.
Yeah. As I got closer to that monk, I my conscious of being me came back, and my conscious of being me in India, and my conscious of being me like in this environment, like in it's mountains, it's like it's the Himalaya. It's like it's amazing. And being conscious of all that suddenly was a powerful scene. And and then when I arrived and I count like I'm counting everything until that moment. I'm counting there was 15 people in line, but I don't know anything about it. I arrived to this monk and I'm looking at this monk and he looked at me and I'm smiling and every smile that is painful and like because I didn't smile for so long and it was a big smile. And then when he looked at me, he's like he started to smile too. And we suddenly start smiling to each other like that. And then he take my hands, like he's holding my hand, and then he started to look in my eyes, and then I start to look in his eyes. So basically, I can say the first person before my dog died.
So wild. And I mean, just the power that you experienced that just like shifted you was amazing.
Yeah, and no expectation, And I because I don't know is the Dalai Lama. Like, I don't even know what is Buddhism. I don't even know what is like. I never heard the word spirituality.
Hmm.
I remember the day after someone would say, I was already like awake in my world of happiness of being that curious child, and I remember somebody say, "Hey, you want to come to meditation?" And I was like looking at that person, that hippie, and I'm like, meditation? Like I had no idea what those word, this word, like this long word mean. I was like curious, and then I went to do meditation. The day after. That's pretty much my awakening call, if you could say that.
And what I think is so wild is you still didn't know what you were being called to or what any of it was. You were just kind of, it sounds like, enamored with these stones in front of you. And then I think you told me you then started, because you still weren't like connecting with the stones as much as they were beautiful, right? But then you
Yeah,
started sleeping with them.
yeah. I started to sleep with them
You
on
dirty,
my
dirty
belly.
man.
Oof, I'm still dirty like that. So yeah, I did. I started sleeping with them, and then I start to realize that like I start to collect different kind of stone. And I was so excited, like I would buy a rose quartz. And I was like, rose quartz, and then I would just hold it and take it everywhere with me. And then I would be like going to sleep. And I'd be like, I just want to sleep with that, and I put it on my belly. Like there was always like that center of my belly, and I remember like part of it like was not just to feel energy because I didn't know that they have energy, but I had this attraction to those stones that I didn't know why, but also part of it was so I would learn how to sleep on my back. That was like a big part of it too. And I knew that if I have this precious thing on me, excuse me, I will be able to. And I remember the first stone that I actually didn't fall all night was chameleon. Mm.
Yeah, my first stone was kyanite. You always remember your first. Yep. It was in
That's
Seattle in
awesome.
some total like hippie tea shop. And
Yeah.
there were just these stones, and I picked it up, and all of a sudden, like all straight up and down my body, I was just like feeling buzzing. I was just
Mm,
like, what is going on? Before that, I
yeah.
would like if someone said like, oh yeah, you know, you can feel something from it, I would have been like, you're out of your mind. And
Exactly.
it's just, you know, it's amazing how something that doesn't have any words or language attached to it, when you actually experience it, it's undeniable. You can't
Yeah.
argue with that.
Yeah.
And I feel like that speaks a lot to what the experiences of engaging with you and your work. Can you talk a little bit about your presentation there and your, because I mean, it's evolved over the years, but it's almost like you sit down and you do a tea ceremony and readings and
It's always for me surprising that actually, like, people are so attracted to stones or spiritual people when actually stones are millions of years old in the physical realm. You know, they're like such a great, solid evidence of physicality. And I chose to be representative of those precious, precious beings and create temples. How, like, show them as a temple, like show, you know, I don't know if you can see, but to show,
yeah.
to make the center as the center of the temple, the stone, and then you're like, what is that? You're like, oh, what is that? That's a Larimar from the Dominican Republic. You know, it's been cooked in the ground for millions of years in one place in the world, and now it's here as a gift, you know, from that beautiful earth on your finger, and you better appreciate it. And that was kind of my mission and I don't feel like I get it. Like I don't really feel like I did much except setting up intention. It really looked like the physical world brought me here to manifest in this reality and to do exact that. And that's why it's really easy for me to do that for the last 30 years. No, I mean, what's hard for me is actually my own personal life, my emotional life, my relationship. But like it's not like the work, like my relationship between the rings and between those beautiful temples and I are we have like a perfect relationship. There is no issues. So and I just blessing like every time I feel like I have kind of like a personal issues in my life, I just can put more effort in my real job, which is making those beautiful power.
Yeah, what a dichotomy. It's interesting how you say you know, it's hard for you in your life with the emotions and the relationships, because my experience has been anytime I am looking at your rings. And do you have one of the boxes nearby? Because you've got these amazing boxes. You're like this Bedouin artist, space monkey,
Yeah,
Hanuman, that just has these boxes. You open up, they're gorgeously painted, and all these rings are just staring at you. Yeah. And so,
yeah,
the experience I feel is like I go to reach to one, and you're just like, ah, and you just start saying what it's about, and it cuts through. Oh
yeah,
wow, is that
yeah.
Ganesh?
That's actually the dragon, the wisdom keeper.
Whoa,
So yeah, so it's a dragon from tiger eye,
tiger's
like
eye.
tiger's eye. Basically, it's like a temple for bravery and wisdom. And like, but every ring, like it's true. Every ring has a story, and sometimes people just touch the rings, so I can tell them different story. But then just touch 10 different rings. Like,
Well, I'll tell you, the rings are beautiful, like beyond beautiful, but very, very rarely do I ever end up purchasing a ring that I'm most in love with. I
yeah,
purchased the ring because something about it calls me. I pick it up and you read what its function is, and it just cuts right through to my heart, and it's just like, fuck, that's the work that I need
yeah,
to do.
yeah, and it's exactly that because the intention already been set before you touch the ring, right? Like in the process of making. there is this strong intention of like making a ring for for you before you arrive. So when you arrive and you touch the ring, the ring is already have your story. And if you recognize that as your story, because those rings are actually, why do I choose to make rings? I mean, I choose to make pendants too, but why I've been known for the rings is because people are looking for commitment for their own power, commitment to their own personal journey. And it's really, there is nothing stronger than just putting a ring always there with you. And every finger too mean different things. And but like, we always like get married putting a ring. It's all like commitment. So I feel like when somebody's looking for extension of his own power, there's a different kind of ways to do that. And one of that is committing to yourself, like and be like, okay, I'm gonna expand my self integrity. And the moment I will put more integrity to my own direction, to me, then because I have more integrity, then I deserve more power of influence others. Because I feel like sensitive people, which is most of my clients, I guess, most of those amazing people, their biggest problem is is the power that they permit themselves to have. So when they actually expand their self integrity, like they're more conscious of their own good, this is when they expand to influence others too. So that's kind of like my job, to sit with those people. My job is kind of like sit with those amazing people, serve them tea, and talk with them about different rings and the story that come with those rings.
Yeah, that talisman and talking about these power objects and putting them on your finger, your hand, there is something very tactile about it. And it's also this, it's a pledge, or you reference like a wedding ring. So many people will just blindly put that back on. That's one of the things when I got married, I said to myself is every time I put this on, I'm going to think before I put it on about what it means and make sure that I'm stepping into that. And I also feel the commitment I made. Or it's like,
Yeah,
people used to tie a string on their finger to remember something. Well, putting a ring on is a lot like that, I guess, too, if you set that intention behind it.
absolutely. And that's exactly where the stories come through, because the stories bring a certain kind of intention or reminding you your own intention sometimes. And then sometimes you don't even need to tell yourself that story, or it's like you don't need to remember your breathing sometimes, you can just breathe, so it's becoming like part of you, this ring is part of your intention, this ring is part of you. Like recently I just lost my big, I mean, maybe I didn't lose, but I don't know where it is, my pendant of Hanuman, and it was like this bracelet, but it was a pendant, right?
Hmm.
So and it was like connected to my reality. Every time I do my exercise, after I finish, I'll put it on, like it's my gift. And I recently lost it, and I feel like part of me is like, oh, part of me is lost. Now I need to found that part in me instead of external. Like part of my external internal are like, oh, what's going on? External became internal, and that internal is external missing, and then yeah, like every relationship, I was like, okay, I was grieving the lost, and then I was like, okay, I have to find inside.
But that pain and that reality, like losing stuff is such a great teacher. And
Oh my god, yeah,
it kind of it makes that the deeper story within, in a tangible physical form, and that becomes undeniable. I remember like a silly one, like I had started training martial arts, and I was about like 8 months in, and my gi was finally getting like worn, like because when you first get it, it's like crisp and new, and it's like it's so clear you haven't put any time into it. And it was finally getting all beat up, and it was stained and tattered, and that same week that I like noticed that and like felt some like egoic attachment to it, I left it on my city bike and it just disappeared. And it was like, okay. It was such a quick and easy one, but it was like, all right, like I get it, like totally cool.
Yeah,
But it's
yeah,
funny how yeah, how losing things
yeah.
can show us.
People a lot of time, yeah, they contact me when they lose their ring. Like
Mm,
this is very common that I hear from people when they lose their ring and tell me how they lose their ring and they want support with that. And it's always really interesting for me, and it's because I know that feeling very well. Like I lost a lot of, and and I know the attachment of those rings. Like how strong is the attachment to those rings, and I always like ask them what was the story that I told them about the ring and what was their intention, and then I follow up with those, like follow that trait. Like okay, so if your intention of that ring was to find sense of humor, right? To feel like a little bit more light about life, and to be that child that you always admired in, when you're like looking back, and see that beautiful child, curious child, and that's where you want to come back to. Like, so I'm like, do you found like that you're more on that path? And usually they will be like, yeah, absolutely. I'm like, whoa. I'm just like, so I'm like, okay, so maybe like it's time for new intention, and see where we're going with it. Always seems to be like there is a reason.
mm-hmm.
100%, I don't know anything. Like recently, like I, I I looked at the word no, right? And I looked at the word no in Hebrew because I translate sometimes when I don't understand something. Like people say, "Oh, I know, I know, I know." I'm like, why are people fighting for things that they know? Like I was curious, like what is no? And then I was like going back to Hebrew. I was like, oh, no in Hebrew is yada, yada, dea, yada, deha. Okay, so it's an opinion. It's information and it's an opinion. And I was like, people are fighting for opinion. And for some reason, people think that knowing connected to truth. And that's why they're fighting. Like when someone say, I know that thing. They don't say I have an opinion about it. It's kind of interesting for me. I was like, oh, I was blown away because I never thought about it. I was like, oh, wow. And even the word information is like still a movement, right? Information. There is a movement there. Like it's not like something that carve on a rock. It's
It's not static, it's dancing and it's ever changing.
exactly.
And back to what you just said, there's this quote from Tony Robbins that says, to understand is intellectual, to appreciate is human.
Yeah.
And and I think
Mm,
that's a big part of it. We can get fixated on understanding something and knowing it. And once we do, we kind of check a box and we're like, okay, I got it. But we rob ourselves of the opportunity to actually connect with it and experience it and feel that on a deeper level.
mm, yeah. Yeah. I mean, like we're made out of all those things. All those things we're. Yeah, that's what Like people think that they know. Like people think, like, who am I? I'm. Of course, I have all those prints, like my DNA prints, that I come with, like carrying all those. But then I have my experiences that actually teach me how to walk in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And the parents that we had, with friends, the podcast we're listening, and we form something. I was just thinking about like ancestor, like that's something I wanted to share because it's something that I just like been looking at, and the idea about like ancestor, like it's kind of like sounds like a prayer of Native American, like I'm gonna call my ancestor and I'm da 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 da, and it sounds like big, and with all the respect, it's bigger than what I thought. Like when the native is like, oh, I'm gonna call my ancestor, I was always thinking, like it's something that I will never understand what they're actually doing. And I thought it belonged to the spirit world that they're actually connecting to. And recently I was feeling about it. I was like, there's like I had like an interesting kind of like almost like a download, if I may say. Like I don't know what it is. And I was like, that's not the spirit that we're calling to. This is who we are. We are our ancestors. Like there was an evolution of thousands of years of that man, that caveman or whatever it was, who knows. But like that evolution, that the process of being me, it took thousands of mans to become me, and those mans are still me. All those men are in me because I'm the evolution of all those men. Who knows? Maybe I'm the last one. I better be my best form of that representative. Like if I'm the last representative of this lineage of men, I should just be awake. That gave me such a strong responsibility of my process. I was like, like, dude, I should whoa, like I'm like somebody. I'm not a person, I'm an army of people.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like really, I was like, oh, those natives were like seeing those things, and it was such a simple thing for them. It was such a common sense, which for me, it took me 52 years to kind of like understand that I actually carrying, like that I'm carrying those people with me. And that was awesome.
Yeah, and it's this also notion, this relationship we have to time as being linear. That's one of the challenges of the human experience. We really do believe that time is linear, and when we let go of that, like you describe, you're not just yourself, and your ancestors aren't just these things that came in the past. You're all still there and connected, and so when we heal for this generation, we heal for the past generations and the future
I
generations.
love it. That's what I feel. I love that you say that. It's beautiful. Yeah, like that's the thing that I felt inside me. I was like, oh my God, every time I have enough courage to go into that healing process and feel safe enough to do so, I feel like those monkeys are celebrating. They're like, woo, 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 woo. They're like, yeah, let's do that. And and every time I don't, they cry with me. Every time every time I fail, they feel it with me and they weep with me. And failing is part of it, because there is no failing without like without trying. There's no failing without actually going there. And recently, a friend of mine told me, like pain of love. It's beautiful. Like being rejected is beautiful. Like it's just another way of the universe telling you, hey, you're really putting yourself out there, which is cool. Some people will get hurt, like get punched by that thing called love, and they will never ever put themselves open like that, so they will not be able to get hurt like that. But some people will get hurt like that and be like, whew, that was something. I'm doing it again. you know?
Mhm.
So it's a kind of like a dance, and if you're ready to expand, so then you have the body, right? And then the body is like playing safe. It's not taking you to things that are not safe to your body. So you can't listen to the body 100%. You listen to your body certain percent. And then you're like, okay, buddy, you're awesome, but here it's not your specialty. Here I'm gonna ask the heart, and you come to the heart, and the heart always say, but yes, but of course, always the heart will say, yes, yes, of course, absolutely, love, yeah, like it's always yes with the heart. And then sometimes you're like, heart, listen, this is not. No, I'm not asking you right now. And then you go up like another level. There is that high consciousness that is like a wise owl that is always there and is always observing, like, oh, I see everything. I know everything. And and it's good. Like he's like this wise guru or whatever, but he doesn't experience the the, the, the life himself. So even then, you're like, yo, even though you think you know everything, you don't experience it firsthand. You're observer. So it's interesting, like how we, when we make a decision or we go through life, who help us when? It's almost like we have like three teachers constantly with us, and we have to ask them all the time. Like, but you can't ask them all together because then they're arguing with each other. Yeah, I don't know if it makes sense.
Yeah, it
Like,
does. And that's where I think being able to listen is so important, right? Listen
yeah,
to
yeah.
each of the perspectives and apply
Mm.
which one uh, resonates most in that moment. Now, now, one of the teachers I know you have, and I don't know from my experience, you match so well with, is the god of Hanuman.
Hanumanji. Yeah.
Can you talk about your relationship with Hanuman and who Hanuman is?
I mean, everybody can check on the internet and see with Hanuman, there will be all those stories, Bhagavad Gita and different kinds of things. He's carrying a mountain, healing to Sita and Ram, and he's like doing all this wonderful thing. And then, but like, this is not my connection to Hanuman because I'm not a religious person. And, or maybe I am religious, but my religion is not defined yet. But I look at Hanuman as teacher, because it's really touching my heart when people say, Hanuman, you're a god. Hanuman, you're Lord Hanuman. And Hanuman constantly say, hey, please don't call me that. You call me, I'm a servant. That's what I do. I'm here to serve. Like I'm not, I don't, I don't feel good. I don't resonate with those words. Okay. I want you to put me in that comfort zone that I feel like. Don't project on me what you want to see in me. When you talk to me, you refer to me as a servant. I'm here to serve. And and it's not because I'm like, the reason why I love him is not because I'm humble, because I'm not humble. I don't think people come to play here humble. I mean, sometimes, it's a case, but I feel like almost like a humble is like another name of shy, like being shy, and it's like, you just be yourself, whatever it is. But I feel like if you would ask the highlights of my life, there will definitely be those places where I served the most, where I felt important. And that's what I want. I want to be important here. I want to be necessary. As a Lord, to give commands, and tell people what to do. Everybody can do that. Like I've been a commander in the army. Everybody can do that. But as someone who really come to serve with intention, that's the hardest thing to remember. Because not, like I wake up in the morning. It's not like the first thing I remember is I'm here to serve. This is something that I kind of need to sink into my own process and found it again each time. Every each time I have to find again why am I here? Like why am I important? And when I feel like why I'm important, I'm like, oh, I'm important because I'm making those reach. I'm important because I'm here when holding space. When people need a good friend, they will call me. Or I'm here to remind people that their qualities and how amazing they are. Like when I feel necessary, I feel good, and that's where I connected to Hanuman. And then for me, Hanuman is not the Hindu god. For me, Hanuman is our highest potential. That's why you can find that figure in all cultures. They call it Bigfoot, they call it Sasquatch, they call it Yati. They have, we have in Indonesia, they call like you have in every region you have a different name. And the reason why I think it is, at least my belief system, is that all came from and something happened on the way. We all been able to transform from fourth dimension, fifth dimension, like being like almighty big or tiny small. We could all be that, but something happened on the process of being that somehow, I don't know if it's a trick or whatever, but somehow those amazing qualities kind of disappear. And since then, we're looking for those expansion through technology, through a different kind of thing, instead of to develop all this time and found those avatar inside of ourselves, those Hanuman inside of ourselves. We're looking outward like all these things. I don't know if I explained it well, but I tried.
Yeah, no, I think I get what you're saying. And, it just brings me back to the notion that as above, so below. Um, Wherever we're at in this period in time, we're using the tools and the methods that are on par with evolution of humanity, of the planet, of the cosmos. And so we're using these technologies to try to find the same things that we might have found in past times through other simpler measures.
Mm,
I don't see it as us needing to go back to where we were, or not going back to how we got there, but
yeah,
still going to the same place and that same
yeah,
point of connection. And
yeah,
that's as I look at lineage and ancestors and all of this, it plays out in that regard as well. It's never a matter of, oh, I wish I was there in that time period because things were so much simpler. It's like, no, the fact that we're here in this complexity with this very signature means that this is the work for us to do right now. These are the tools that we're meant to
exactly.
to pick up.
I love that.
Speaking of the tools, the metals and the stones, I mean, you have this whole other family on the other side of the rings that
Yeah,
you have been working with for a long time. Can you tell us about that a bit?
yeah. I have my homeboys in Nepal, and that we worked together for the last 27 years. They're like my family. We take care of each other. It's a long process, you know. It's like some of those, like we're five people, so some of like one of the five was 13 when I met him for the first time. He was helping his uncle, and we bonded, and we became like, and all their life, they just did my jewelry, I mean, your jewelry. That's why people say to me, "Yeah, why don't you sign the ring?" I'm like, if I have to sign the rings, I will have to put so many names that I rather just leave it empty and leave it to your imagination. I don't even care. I mean, it's not like I don't care. I care so much that I actually don't want to do it. And even like, what about the truck driver that went all the way from the copper mine, all the way from whatever, drove for like 30 hours, and what about him? Can I sign his name too? But like going back to the people in Nepal, when I came first time to Nepal, I remember I went with one of my friends, Bobby said, to his family. It was like almost 30 years ago, and he took me to his village, and on the way we walked for like we took a bus for 16 hours, and then we start to walk, and on the way I tell him, Bobby, say I'm hungry, and he say, okay, so we have to stop in one family. I was like, well, come, we buy food. He's like, no, die, like die is big brother. He was like, die, there is no money here. I was like, what? I was like there is no money here. I was like, how is it possible? He say money didn't arrive here yet. And that's so amazing. And then I saw like a woman carry a beautiful bag. I was like, Bobby said, I need to buy this bag. He was like, die, you can't buy anything here. Or they give it to you or you can't have it. I was like, oh my God, this is how long it was. And now the same people have iPhone. Same people have technology. Like think about how fast it's.
Yeah, once that door opens up, it's a floodgate. And that's one of those things I struggle with too when I think about cultures and that, my relationship used to be like, oh, they're losing this or that. The reality is no, they're tapping into these new technologies and they're evolving, and hopefully the important traditions carry on, but it's the nature of where we are now, and we need to celebrate when we have those moments of connection to these times that are fading, because we are in an increasingly complex world, and I don't see that changing. So we need to embrace it.
Beautiful state, yeah. Yeah, we're here to acknowledge the beauty of the past, but being present and put seeds for beautiful future. If we're gonna be stuck in what was, then we're not enough present to put seeds. Like what do you put in the ground? You're like stuck in the past.
Yeah, it reminds me as you were telling that story, it couldn't help but take me to Burning Man and, a place where we took some of these ideas of a bartering system. And while it only exists for a week of the year, it's a magical thing and it just opens up to connection in a whole other way. And this was, of course, inspired by other barter systems that existed.
Really beautiful. I just came back from Burning.
Oh, you went this year, the unsanctioned Burning Man. Nice. I want to hear everything.
Well, it was what it was, right? Like it wasn't the same, but who won the same anyway?
Yeah.
It was powerful because it didn't have the system around. So the people actually did the system, which you could see that we don't need leadership in that sense. It's funny. I just had a conversation with a woman. I saw her dog like yesterday. I pick up water from the water store, and then it was late at night, and then there was a dog. There was a big truck and a dog sitting in the driver's seat like that, like a real like he know what's up. It wasn't one of those really mixed dogs, like mixed up. The most clever one. And you can see on his eyes, like, oh my god, this dog is just freak. And and I asked this girl, I was like, what's up with the dog? And she was like, oh, he's always like that. Whenever I go out of the car, he likes the car to be on, and he likes to sit where I'm sitting. Like that's his thing. Such an amazing dog. So I was saying, like to her, it's so funny, how like I breed dogs. They need to always be trained so much to become like, you know, to be good, how do you call it? Trained dogs. And then all those mixed dogs, you never train them. They just become who they are. They are amazing. So I feel like Burning Man was like those were a bunch of mixed dogs that don't need to be trained. We're fine, We don't need leaders. We're okay. We're not gonna leave garbage back. Like I left very late. There was not a piece of garbage for miles. No one shit in the everybody took their own shit literally outside of the playa. It was so beautiful to observe that we mixed dogs, all those marks that we are, we're just trained with integrity. We don't need someone to tell us what to do. We don't need a protector, We don't need all those governments that will tell us what to do. And if we do need, certain kind of leaders in certain things, it can be very organic. It doesn't have to be there. It doesn't have to be
Yeah.
so, militant energy of like
Mm-hmm.
this you can do, this you don't. We don't need that anymore. And the people who think they need it, those are the ones that actually have to release the training. Maybe they've been trained for too long. Maybe they've been
Mm-hmm.
like we were talking about. I remember like we are talking about the school system. Right? People being trained to think that what they know is the truth.
And the only truth.
The only truth, and they stuck with it. Like people who've been vaccinated, they believe that vaccination is the most. People who are not vaccinated, they believe that only unvaccinated people
Mm-hmm.
should be allowed. Like let go.
Because the conversations become about convincing someone that you're right. It's not
Yeah,
about hearing them or even having them hear you. It's
yeah,
just so far from the point. I love that comparison to mutts, these mixed dogs, because the other thing is when you're just this one singular breed, your programming is so clear and it's like this is what
exactly,
you're told what you're supposed to be and you've got to grow into that. Yet when you're this
exactly.
mixed pot of who knows what, it's up to you to figure it out and just let that truth come out.
Yeah, we're just mixed up.
Yeah, man, I like that. I'm gonna carry that, because I think that's a beautiful way of looking at it. With the
What kind of mixed dogs you are?
I think I'm a blue one, and I have some green, maybe a lightning bolt on it somewhere.
That's awesome.
It's like not even comparing it to breeds anymore. It's got to change the
Yeah,
whole language. Another thing that's pretty wild with the Burning Man thing is, if you think about what a lot of people who have attended Burning Man have been remarking on about how Burning Man has changed, right? One of the big complaints was, oh, it's not what it was. There's all these plug and play camps, which means that instead of doing all of the planning and preparation to go out and build your own experience at Burning Man, you could just give $5,000 or whatever it is to a camp, show up on the day of, and they'll give you everything you need. And
yeah,
so that's been a complaint, because everyone's intention wasn't always in the same place. But all of a sudden, this past Burning Man experience kind of removed that. So it
yeah,
gave that gift of being able to experience it, where the only people were there, they worked their ass off to get there, and they weren't
yeah,
taking no for an answer.
yeah. And honestly, like I didn't even look. Should I go there?
Go there. We're
Okay,
already there, man.
cool. Okay, cool. So I feel like there is. I wouldn't even call it darkness, right? I'll say there is a lot of time that the system, the militant system, want to go in to everything we do. So like, you build a, like I give you example, we went like my mother of my child and I and our little boy, we went like 15 years ago to look for a new place to live. And we're tired of this place. We can't handle it anymore. And then we arrived to this community in Brazil. And we're like, this is the place. It's so beautiful. And the more we went inside, we realized the pyramid is still there. Like someone made sure to bring the pyramid of the leadership and who is under that. And the moment we realized, I was like, oh my God, this is not what it is. Like, and I feel like when Burning Man became that pyramid, it's kind of like was distracted. It's been distracted. Like the essence of innocent was distracted.
Mm-hmm.
Because when there is an innocent, then there is a natural organic path. But the moment there is a Lord, there is a pyramid, then even though it's a triangle, it's still a box. It's a box that's made out of triangle. I don't know if you ever saw those boxes, the shape of triangle. They're still boxes, and and you can just open and close them, but you can't just release them. And that's what happened, when you're actually releasing the box, and like you can go in anything you want that have a box to it. You can go to any religion, you can go to any spiritual path. You can master it, but you will still be clueless in something completely different
Mm-hmm.
because that's just a box. And I feel like our ability to be out of the box and be free have a lot to say in the world of not knowing. Like people say, they call the void all those places we do not know, they call the void. And then there is another word that say avoid. Like,
Mm.
be careful from the void. Avoid the void. You're like,
Whoa.
what the hell? Like, why do we need a program on Burning Man? Why do we need someone who take care when we already know how to take care? When we can be our reminder of each other, be like, hey, dude, you left some garbage. Can I help you to clean that? Not even like, hey, dude, pick up the garbage. Hey, babe,
Mm-hmm.
can I help you? Can I help you to carry the garbage to your car? You know, like
Mm-hmm.
like we can be like helping each other to go into that place. We don't need to be cops of each other. That's something I hate. When people are becoming cops of each other. No, but like, can I help you to love more? Can we like look in each other's eyes and remind each other how beautiful we are? And That's and even like we're like in Burning Man, we're feeling those feelings, and suddenly like everybody's like, "Come in 8 o'clock to the playa," and I'm like to the center of the playa, and I'm like, "What's up in 8 o'clock?" And we all come in 8 o'clock. And I was like, I was expecting something really beautiful to happen, and then there is a bunch of drones that make like an army, like it's like presentation of the army on the sky, and I'm like, this is why people gather. Like 20,000 people came here to look at that instead of holding hands and say thank you. Like that's what brought people. And I'm saying, this military, militant energy that try to go inside of those places. This is what we have to pay attention. This is the places where we can be like, hey, we don't want that energy in. You're okay, but you're not leading here. We don't want you here. We don't want to give you too much attention. You can come and learn. You can come and be part of, but you can't bring your energy and be like, hey, look at that. Look at what I did. I hope people would be okay with that. But
Well, some people will be and some people won't. And I think that's fine,
yeah,
right? I
yeah,
think
yeah,
that's the other thing as we have people awakening to, and I'm not talking about a spiritual awakening, I'm talking about awakening from this sleepwalking that we've been in, where we
yeah,
have outsourced and given away our power, and we've allowed people to tell us what is right, what is wrong, what is
yeah,
enough, what's not enough, and what you can and can't do. And I think that's where people are waking up. And when they do, they then question, well, why are we gathering here? What are we gathering for? And that's where the ability to self-govern, where people can have these distributed and decentralized systems that work, because people stand up and they do it because they care about the community, and they say,
yeah,
okay, well, wait, what's not working here? All right, how can we help? Or what needs to change? And they work through it together, and everyone feels
yeah,
connected to it because they do. And then afterwards, they move on when they realize, okay, it's not needed anymore. It's not like, cool, I got in that position of power, I was leading this project, and now I'm the leader. It's like, no, it worked for that,
no,
now let's jump on to the next thing. And
yeah,
it's like breathing. You don't hold on to a breath just because you fill your lungs up so big. You don't just hold on to it, you
mm,
release it and you embrace the next one.
yeah.
So, Pitango, before we wrap up, can you tell us about how people can find your work? And I know you travel around a lot too. I always imagine that you do these like trunk shows where you go to people's places and you reveal all the rings and do your ceremonies. Is that a truth? Can people try to,
Yeah,
connect with you on the road to do that? How does it work?
yeah, yeah. First of all, like I do a lot of exactly what you were saying. Like people organizing me those events, they tell me, okay, I have 10 people that are interested, and they call me, and I sometimes fly. If I'm feeling it, I know that something is calling me. When I hear the right sound, I'm like, okay, I feel there is something there, and I'll fly. I'm like, okay, 10 people is good, and I'll go to Chicago, and be there and found other stuff happening to me, and experience things that they're good for me there, and then I have so that happened a lot, and so I'm moving from place to place. I go to Austin a lot, to Miami once in a while. I go to New York, at Los Angeles. I actually go quite a lot, and I live in Sedona, Arizona. So I do that here once in a while. But the way to actually connect me is through Instagram and Facebook, pretty much.
And we'll include all the links.
And sometimes people just, you can put my phone number, because I'm not really a celebrity in that way. I'm answering my phone, like, hey, what's up? So like, it's not like I'm very easy to access. So it's Facebook, Instagram, and my website, and my phone number, and event.
Amazing. We'll make it easy for folks to connect, because this magic is something that wants to be shared. Pitango, thank you so much for joining today.
Oh my God, it was awesome.
Thanks for joining us this week on Growth Guide. A big thanks to our sponsors. This episode is sponsored by Project New You. I'm a huge fan of their Nitrovite nootropic brain supplement. It's helped me to develop laser focus, a better memory recall, and motivation. Nitrovite has helped me in launching this podcast amongst completing many other projects. Visit growthguide.love/focus to learn more and use promo code GROWTH for 15% off. This episode is also sponsored by Morning Man. Live manly, own the morning. I learned about this from UFC champ Frank Shamrock. He was always having trouble getting started in the morning without like 7 or 8 cups of coffee. No exaggeration, I've seen this in person. So he created this product that's packed full of 45 superfoods and it has 95 milligrams of clean caffeine. So you get that charge from the greens and also get a hit from the caffeine without feeling all jacked up. I'm definitely caffeine sensitive and I like this product because it doesn't make me feel like I'm bouncing off the walls, but I feel sharp and energized to get shit done. Visit growthguide.love/morningman to learn more and use promo code GROWTH for 15% off. I'd also like to thank our sponsor, Atmananda Yoga. You guys have got to check out their yoga alignment mat. I've been using this for a long time. As you know by now, I've studied and trained with them as a yoga teacher, and the mat is incredible to deepen your practice and to ensure a lifelong injury-free practice. Visit growthguide.love/alignment for more info or to buy. Be sure to use code GROWTH at checkout for 15% off. Make sure to visit our website, growthguide.love, where you can find freebies, exclusive content, and subscribe to the show so you'll never miss an episode. If you found value in listening, I'd really appreciate a rating on iTunes. I can't tell you just how important this is. Or spread the love. Tell your friends, your fam, heck, tell your spirit animals. And follow me on Instagram at growthguide.love. Be sure to tune in next week for our newest episode.